Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. In this video we are going to see how we can report on both calendar and fiscal years. We are going to work on Power BI and see how we can create a date table that can cater for both calendar years and also the fiscal year using the DAX. This video will be relatively long, that's why you will see some chapters inside the description section. Please use them in order to navigate through the video. Also, the same technique that we're going to use today will be very effective inside Excel Power Pivot, so you can just use inside Power BI or inside Power Pivot. It will not make a difference. Let's go directly to Power BI and look at the example for today. We have a very simple model containing only 3 tables. The first one is the transaction table, which is basically the sales table because it contains the sales transaction for a certain period. Also, we have 2-dimensional table. First one is the product table, which is basically containing the names of the products. And also we have the calendar table in order to report on the month, year and quarters. You'll notice that both of the dimensional table connected to the transaction table via one-to-many relation. Before looking into the reports that we have inside this model, I want to go to the data view in order to check the sales table. The sales table is very basic, containing only 4 columns, one for date, product ID, and then quantity, and finally the revenue for each and every transaction. If you check the dates that we have inside this table, you will find that the first date is 1st of July 2018, and if you check the final date that you have, you will find that we have a date in June 2019, meaning that these transactions are happening between 2 years, 2018 and 2019. Now we are going to check the report that we have inside the report view. You will find that we have 2 pivot tables. Let's check the first one. The first one is only 2 columns. The first column for the dates and the second column for the sales amount. If you check the dates that we have, you will find that it is crosses between 2018 up to 2019, from 2018 Q3 and Q4, and we have months from July up to December, and in 2019 Q1 and Q2 dates from January up to June. But if I tell you that our fiscal year is starting from 1st of July and ending 30th of June, now we need to look at the second pivot table, and this is exactly the pivot table that take into consideration the fiscal year. And if you check the dates now, you will find that we have only 1 year, FY 18-19 or fiscal year 2018-2019, meaning that our transactions now inside one fiscal year. And you will find that the order of the quarters is very different. I have quarter 1 with July, August, September, quarter 2, October up to December, and so on and so forth, until we reach the quarter 4 and the last month of June, which is the last month of the fiscal year. And now we are going to see how we can create a calendar table that can cater for both years, the calendar year and also the fiscal year. I'm going to start from another Power BI desktop file that contains only the sales table and the product table, and I'm going to create a new calendar table. In order to do so, I'm going to the data view, and from data view I'm going to table tools and then new table. This will prompt me to the formula bar, and I'm going to use a very simple function called Calendar Auto. At the beginning I'm going to give a name for this table. Let me call it calendar, and then equal, and I'm going to use the Calendar Auto. Calendar Auto requires no parameters or no arguments. I can just open the bracket and close it, and then I'm going to hit the check mark. It will create automatically a table with a single column. This column will be named date, and it will contain a list of dates. How Calendar Auto will decide the dates? It will check all the dates, all the columns containing dates inside this model. Then it will decide the minimum date and the maximum date. The beginning of the calendar table will be the beginning of the calendar year in which the minimum date is inside. meaning that if we have dates starting from 2018, anytime in 2018, so the first date of this calendar table will be 1st of January 2018. And if we have dates in 2019, the maximum date is in 2019. We have any time inside or any date inside 2019, so the last date of this calendar will be 31st December 2019. And this is exactly what happened. You will see that I have 1st of January 2018, and if we check the last date, it will be 31st December 2019. Remember that I told you at the beginning that my fiscal year starts in July and ends in June, not starting in January and ends in December. So I need to tell the calendar auto something saying that please don't start from 1st of January. Instead, please start from the 1st of July. In order to do so, I can add the optional parameter inside the two brackets, and this will be the number that indicates the month in which the fiscal year ends. In our case, it will end in June. June is number 6 in the calendar months, so I'm going to add 6 here and then hit the check mark, and you will see that the start of the year will be, or the start of the calendar table will be 1st of July. And if we check the last date here, you will see that the last date will be 30th of June 2019, and I think this is a very good start. Before adding new columns to this table, I need to change the format of the date column because it contains date and time. Let me go to the column tools, and from column tools I can select the format. I'm going to pick this one. It is very short and simple to read. And now we can add some columns in order to specify the month, the quarter, and the year. In order to add a new column, I'm going to right click and then add column or new column. This will prompt me again to the formula bar, and I'm going to use some functions in order to create the columns. At the beginning, I need the name of the month, and luckily the name of the month will not be different if it is a calendar year or a fiscal year. In all cases, I need the name of the month. July will stay July, June will stay June, and so on and so forth. I'm going to give a name for this column. Let's call it month name and then equal. In order to get the month name, I'm going to use the function format. It is very similar to text in Excel. At the beginning, it requires a value. This value will be inside the only column that we have, or the date column. This column inside the calendar table. So I'm going to type calendar, and between two square brackets I'm going to type date, then comma. The second requirement is the format. The formatting will be a code inside a double quotation, so I'm going to add a double quote, and the format that I'm going to use will be triple M. Triple M will give the abbreviated name of the month, like APR or FEB and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to close the bracket and hit enter, and here you go, you have a new column called month name, and you have the name of all the month. You can check from the filter and everything is good so far. Now I need to have the month number. The month number in my case will be very helpful if I want to sort the month name. So I need to find the month number. At the beginning, I'm going to find the calendar month number, and I'm going to add it in a new column. So I'm going to right click once more and hit the new column. This will prompt me once more to the formula bar. The column name will be C for calendar, and then month number, and then equal. I'm going to use a very simple function called month, and the only use of this function is to retrieve the calendar month number from a date. So it requires a date. I'm going to give it the date column once more, calendar, and then I'm going to select calendar date, close the bracket, and then hit the check mark. And here you go. You have first month is 7, July is 7. If you scroll down, August will be 8, scroll down again, September is 9, and so on and so forth. But remember that I have a different order because I need to work on the fiscal year, so I need a different order of the month. I need July to be my first month, or take the number 1, and then August to take number 2, September will be number 3, and so on and so forth, until June will be my last month, or number 12. In order to do so, I'm going to try to calculate it also inside a new column. Right click and new column. This time I'm going to call it F month number. F stands for fiscal, and then equal. I'm going to use the same function month, so I'm going to type month, and then I'm going to feed in also the calendar date, no problem at all. Table calendar and column date, close the bracket and hit the check mark. This will give me exactly the same result. So I need some other function to help me to shift the date backward by 6. If I manage to get 1st of July 2018 backward by 6 months, this will also shift the month number 6 months as well, and then I can use the month function in order to get the correct answer. In order to do so, I'm going to edit inside the formula bar. I'm going to press shift enter here and then 1 or 2 tab. Inside the month function, I'm going to use a function called edate. This is exactly same as the edate that you can use inside Excel, and edate will require a start date. Start date is nothing but my calendar date, and then it will require number of months. I need to shift this date 6 months back, so I'm going to type -6 or -6, and then I can just close the bracket for the function month and then hit the check mark, and here you go, you have your fiscal month number shifted 6 months back. If you check now, let's check our last month. Last month will be June, number 12. Our first month is July and number 1. I think it is working perfectly. Once we manage to get the month number correctly, we can now get the quarter number. I need to classify the months by the quarters. Jan, Feb, March in quarter 1, April, May, June quarter 2, and so on and so forth. But this for what? This for my calendar year. So let's start by the calendar year and see what we're going to do for the fiscal year. In order to add a column for calendar quarter number, I'm going to right click and then new column. This will prompt me again to the formula bar. Let me call this one C, C for calendar, and then quarter number or quarter, and then equal. In order to decide the quarter, I can also use the format function. Actually, there is many ways to calculate the quarter number, but the simplest one is using the format function. I'm going to use format, and then I'm going to feed in also the date column, calendar date, and then comma. The code of the formatting will be inside double quotation. This time I'm going to use only a Q. I'm going to type only a Q and then close the bracket and hit the check mark. You will see that you have the number of the calendar quarter. July, August, and September are inside quarter 3. If you check October and then November and December all in quarter 4, and so on and so forth. But if you want to prefix this to add something like Q and dash, you can do it in multiple ways. You can just add at the beginning inside the formula bar, you can just add Q and dash and then and to concatenate and hit the check mark. This will work perfectly. So you have the prefix before the number of the quarter, or you can just delete this, and inside the format, if you add a backslash and then Q dash, this will do the exact same job. If you hit the check mark, nothing will change now. So we managed to get the calendar month number, fiscal month number, calendar quarter. So now we need to calculate the fiscal quarter. Right click, new column, F for fiscal and then quarter, equals. I'm going to use the exact same format. However, I'm going to use also the edate before the format function. So exactly the same technique that we used in order to calculate the F month number. So I'm going to use format and then the date. Let me take one line, shift and enter. Date will be inside the edate function. So I'm going to type edate. The start date will be our calendar date, our only column containing dates. And then comma -6 in order to shift 6 months backward, and then comma, the format will be \Q -Q, close the double quote, close the bracket for format, and then hit the check mark, and here you go, you have the fiscal quarter. Now you have July inside quarter 1, also August inside quarter 1, September as well, still quarter 1. If you move to October, now we started quarter 2, and so on and so forth until you reach the month of June. It is inside quarter 4. So I think the quarters is working perfectly. The last one is to calculate the years. So at the beginning, I need the calendar year, right click and then new column, C for calendar and then year equal a very simple function called year. It requires only one argument, which is basically calendar date. So far, no problem. Hit the check mark and here you go. You have 2018, and if you scroll down, you have 2019 in the second half of this table. Now, the last challenge is to calculate the fiscal year. How we can calculate the fiscal year? Right click and then new column. Let me give the name F year for the fiscal year and then equal. So let's start by thinking about the fiscal year. How we are going to label the fiscal year? The fiscal year normally labeled by the start of the year and the end of the year, meaning that if the dates inside 2 years, like the example that we have from 1st of July 2018 up to 30 June 2019, so the fiscal year I should call it 1819. At the beginning, I'm going to decide the end of the fiscal year. So I need to look at the end of the fiscal year, and then it will be very easy to subtract 1 and then calculate the beginning of the fiscal year. In order to decide the end of the fiscal year, I need to think about the months inside this year. I have no issue in the second half of the year. If you think about January up to June 2019, so the end of the fiscal year will be 2019, and also the end of the calendar year will be 2019. So the second half we have no problem. The only problem that I have is the first half, meaning that from July up to December, I need to add 1 to the number of the calendar year. Let's try to do so, but at the beginning I'm going to declare a variable, and this variable will do nothing but just capturing the number of the calendar year. So I'm going to type var to declare a variable. Let me call it cy for calendar year and then equal. I'm going to use the year function, and then I'm going to provide calendar date exactly like what we did before, and then shift and enter. Because I'm using var, I need to use a return, and let me just return the cy and hit the check mark. You will get nothing but the calendar year, no problem so far. Now let's try to apply some logic inside the return, after the return. So I need to use the if statement. Let me edit inside the formula bar and then shift enter. I'm going to use the if function, and in the if function, I'm going to check the F month number. I need to check the fiscal month number. So I'm going to just reference F month number. Here is the table calendar and then F month number. I need to check if this is less than or equal to 6, meaning that it is inside the first half of my fiscal year, numbers from 1 up to 6. If this is the case, please use the calendar year plus 1. If this is not the case, please use the calendar year only, and then close the bracket and hit enter. Let's see what will happen now. I have only 1 year, which is 2019. This is unlike the calendar year, which we have 2 years, 2018 and 2019. Now I managed to decide the fiscal year or the end of the fiscal year. I need to put it in the format FY 18-19, like what we saw in the final report. So let me declare another variable, but this time this variable will contain the calculation of the fiscal year. So I'm going to copy here and then shift and enter. Let me call this fiscal year var FY equals the entire if statement. So inside return, I'm going to return the FY minus 1, which is basically the beginning of the calendar year. And I'm going to concatenate this with a dash between 2 brackets. Then I'm going to concatenate once more with the FY itself. So please start by FY minus 1, which I already calculated, and then add dash and then put the FY. Let me do the check mark right now. You will see that I have 2018 and 2019. Remember that I usually use 18 and 19, so I can also edit inside the second variable. Instead of just calculating the fiscal year, I can just take the last 2 characters or the first 2 characters from the right. I can use the function right, and then by the end I'm going to type 2 and then close the bracket and hit the check mark. Now it is 18-19. So far so good. I need just to concatenate with the prefix FY. So after the return, I'm going to type FY between double quotes and then concatenate once more and hit the check mark, and here you go, you have FY 18-19. Now we managed to have a calendar table that can cater for both the calendar year and also the fiscal year. Now I'm ready to integrate this table inside my model, but before doing so, I need to do a couple of steps. The first one is to mark this table as date table. I'm going to do so from the table tools. I have the button mark as date table. Once I select on it, I need to switch on this button, and then I'm going to select the only column that contains date, which is basically the date column, and then save. Now this table marked as a date table. The very final step is to make sure that the month name is sorted correctly. In order to do so, I'm going to use the sort by column feature. This is inside the column tools. I can find it right here, sort by column. So I'm going to select the month name, and then I'm going to use the sort by feature. The best column to use to sort the month name will be the fiscal month number. So I make sure that if I drag this inside any report, the first month to appear will be July, and then August, and so on and so forth until the end of the fiscal year, which is basically June. Now I'm ready to integrate or to create the relation. So I'm going to select the model view, and I'm going to create the relation between the calendar table and the sales table. The common column will be the date. So I'm going to select the date inside the calendar, and then I'm going to drag it until I reach the sales table, and I'm going to release. Here is the new relation window. I need to just double check a couple of things. First is the cardinality, one-to-many relation, which is exactly what I need, and also the cross filter in single direction. And I'm going to hit save. Now my date table is integrated, and I'm ready to create the reports. The very final step is to create a report. I'm going to report the sales revenue twice, once using the calendar table or the calendar year, and the second time will be using the fiscal year. But in order to do so, I need to create one measure in order to calculate the total revenue. I'm going to select a new measure, and then I'm going to call it total sales. Equal and sum, I'm going to select the sales table, the revenue column, close the bracket and hit the check mark. From the properties on the right hand side, I just need to make sure that I have thousand separator. So whenever I drop this measure inside a pivot table, the numbers will be more readable. Let me go directly to the report view, and I'm going to select a matrix or a pivot table. Inside this matrix, I'm going to drop the total sales in the value section, and then I'm going to start reporting the calendar year. So I'm going to select the calendar year inside the rows. Below the calendar year, I'm going to use the calendar quarters. And finally, I'm going to drop the month name below the quarters. I need to expand this matrix. Here you go. I have my report. Let me try to increase the font size a little bit. I think this is much better. If you check the report now, we have 2 years, 2018 and 2019. We're starting from quarter 3 at July and ends with quarter 4 in December. Same in 2019, starting from quarter 1, ending in quarter 2, between Jan and June. Let me try to just copy this visual or copy this matrix. Select any empty space, Control V. I'm going to drag it a little bit here, and let's try the fiscal year report. Let me uncheck quarter and calendar years, and I'm going to replace them with the fiscal year and then fiscal quarters. Let me expand as well. You will see that I have only one fiscal year, 18-19, starting correctly from quarter 1, ends with quarter 4. The beginning of quarter 1 will be July, and the end of quarter 4 will be June. So we managed to do the report twice. The first one using the calendar years, and the second one using the fiscal years. I think it is very effective. Inside the same date table, we managed to cater for both calendar and fiscal years, and you can use them in order to report on both years. That was all for today. Thank you very much for your time. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe, leave a comment and share the video, and we'll catch you in the next video, and bye.